Good morning, everyone. I'm Victor Odusanya, a GSOC contributor for some of code to Spinnaker project. In the last GSOC session, I worked on a drone CI stage plugin for Spinnaker. So what the drone CI stage plugin did for Spinnaker was more like it's enabled, allowed us to basically trigger a drone CI stage from a Spinnaker's CI/CD pipeline. So this is what it looks like. Basically, you could go there, set up this plugin, and then be able to communicate with your with your drone CI server, and then select repositories, select namespaces for your drone CI builds, and then pass additional configuration to trigger this this drone CI stages. Basically, it was built using Spinnaker's plugin framework that is dependent on PF4J, and basically it is an extension to the Spinnaker Orca microservice. So the Spinnaker project is set up in such a way that it enables us to be able to pick any Spinnaker microservice that you feel that you'd like to add some functionality to, and then write some extensions to this extensions in the form of plugins, and then start enable these plugins, and then each of these microservices then download these plugins, and then start these plugins on puts, and then you're able to add this functionality as on the fly. So just to give you an insight into what's the architecture for each of those Spinnaker services into Spinnaker itself as a whole, and then what each of those Spinnaker services are responsible for doing. So this is more like what is a list of the Spinnaker's microservices, and then what each of them do. So for this session today, we'll mostly be looking at the Spinnaker Orca service. So the Orca service is most it's like an orchestration engine on Spinnaker itself, like such that it's able to help you sort of like connect the dots across the pipeline. It is so it has the first class concept of in the pipeline there will be individual stages. There's first class concept of stages in a pipeline. So in those stages, there's also the concept of tasks in individual stages. Say, for example, I'd like to do something like, build an artifact from a jar, for example. Building that artifact, would definitely have a couple of steps that would require to build that artifact. So each of those steps, directly map out to what an Orca task looks like. So this concept, this quite important stuff. So I'm just trying to list them out. There's the pipeline, then there's the stage, and then there's the task, individual task in those stages. Yeah. So say for example, I'd like to build communicate with a webhook endpoint. I'll have to create a stage for this webhook endpoint that will call out to this to the webhook endpoint, and then in that stage you would have the task that will actually do the work of calling out, and then maybe if you are required to wait on until we get a success until we get a success response, we would also have something like like a monitor task that will poll this endpoint. So in a task, there's also the concept of retrievable task too as well. So what is a retrievable task? A retrievable task is basically a task that can be retrieved until you get a success response, or until you time out. So in stages too, there's also the concept of cancelable stages too as well. And in tasks too, we also have retrievable tasks. So what will determine how it all maps out is is going to also be some intrinsics around just to confirm that you're able to hear me clearly. I'm not sure I can be heard clearly. I can see that there's some chat messages around my being audible. Okay, cool. I think just so to try to comment to this session, to if you have comments, if you had suggestions or anything, you can access this link, access premium content. You'll be able to provide some comments, some feedbacks, and ask questions as it's going. Awesome, thanks. So I was just trying to confirm that you're able to hear me. Cool. Yeah. So each of this this concept, each of this this basic components of Orca are sort of exposed via APIs. That so that the plugins that you write, the extensions that you write, can all reach out and then call out to dependent interfaces on this. So these APIs are usually exposed as things like Spinnaker extension points. So what is, oh, okay. So basically what is an extension point? An extension point is just a way of Spinnaker's developed services exposing interfaces for you to be able to use Spinnaker functionality functionality in the Spinnaker service. Usually these extension points are based on P4J extension points, and they pretty much map out to say, for example, you want to develop a Spinnaker plugin. It's pretty much down behind the scenes, you're pretty much developing a P4J plugin. It's equivalent, although it's not commutative in that if you're developing a Spinnaker a P4J plugin, it does not necessarily mean you're developing a Spinnaker plugin. So yeah, so one of the steps to to get started with trying to develop a Spinnaker plugin, I'll try to also bring up a real life scenario, and then we'll work from there. Cool. So you need you probably you definitely need an ID. You'd also need to so you need an ID. You'd also have some requirements around choosing what your chosen language should be. You could either decide to use develop your plugin in Java. You could also decide to develop your plugin in Kotlin. So it's pretty much up to you to decide whatever what your comfort level is with any of the plugins. You'd also need something like a package manager of some sort. You could either use Maven, or you could use Gradle. But it's pretty much very recommended that you go about using Gradle to get started. So because there's some plugins that are built around some Gradle plugins that are built around bundling Spinnaker plugins. Yeah. So there's also the concept of Spinnaker plugin bundles. So in the Spinnaker plugin bundle, there may be individual plugins for that, or individual extensions for individual services in that plugin bundle. It means that you could have some code to extend Deck. You could also have some code to extend Orca. You could also have some code to extend Echo. You could also have some code to extend Eagle, all in the same plugin bundle. So what will happen is that you'd have the project itself, and then submodules within the project, and then those submodules will be extensions to each of those services, and then the plugin bundle will bundle each of those extensions into one zip, or depending on what the delivery method will be, into one zip, and then that you can then specify in your Spinnaker configuration that will then be installed. So yeah. So I think I've showed you the drone CI stage plugin. So there's a link that could help you with if you want to get started with building Spinnaker plugins. So this link basically talks about extending Orca. So I think I mentioned earlier that you can extend basically any Spinnaker service. And in fact, if you want to extend the Spinnaker service, and then you feel that and you find out that and the extension points and the interfaces that you require are not present in the API for that package, you could open a pull request, or you create an issue that you're looking to add some functionality to this, and then the community is very very welcoming, and they definitely help you get what you require. So yeah, so this is this. Let me share. Cool. Move this about. Yeah. So there's a plugin creators guide. It's mostly around steps that would help you, with starting, with writing your own plugin, and some steps with, okay, how do you like to, basically how to help you take some baby steps with, yeah, let me do that. Basically how to, this will help you with baby steps with with beginning to develop Spinnaker plugins. There's the P40 stage plugin that basically it's basically like an intro, like an intro into into Spinnaker plugin development. So if you wanted to develop a Spinnaker plugin, I would recommend I would recommend that you go from the P40 stage plugin, because it's very bare bones. So it's it kind of like encourages you to go from there and then build on whatever you want, and then and then you're all good. Cool. So for the purpose of this for the purpose of this demo, would be also extending, going from the PF4G plugin, because it already has all the bootstrap setup that is required to set up this project. I would be talking about a case study. So I'll be talking about a case study. In our day-to-day as DevOps engineers, as platform engineers, as whatever the case may be, there will be cases that we have to try to integrate services. Integration may be a problem, in that we need to find a way to connect our tools together, such that you have an holistic view into things. You also have the automation is all set up that from the start to finish, we'd like to avoid manual processes along the way, and that means that not every service that you're going to use is going to have an integration point with the next service. We are going to have to develop custom solutions to try to tie all things together. So for the sake of this demo, I'll be talking about trying to hook Spinnaker itself with something like a GitHub dispatch. So GitHub has this amazing feature of being able to use a GitHub Actions workflow to try to automate automate CI steps, CD processes, CI processes too as well. It's quite similar to something like Travis. It's quite similar to something like Circus. It's quite similar to something like the GitLab CI workflow too as well. So for the sake of this demo, we are going to develop a plugin that will reach out to that will be available to us, that will be able to we can configure from Spinnaker to call out to send some dispatch to some repository. So that dispatch code, it could contain anything. That dispatch may be maybe to build an image, maybe to build a jar, maybe to call some endpoints, maybe to perform another action. It's not really that important. So where I'd like us to go from first is to try to understand what the few things that we need, the requirements to do this. First, we are going to need to communicate the in communicating with the GitHub dispatch endpoint, we are going to require a few things. We need an auth token. We also need the name of the hug of the repository. We also need the name of the repository itself. So these are a few things that we may need. Then also we may need some things like the actual payload that we send as part of that dispatch itself, something like a payload the dispatch itself can receive, right? Also, so there's the GitHub API reference that you can pull up. to basically tell us how to, how to communicate with that, GitHub dispatch endpoint. I think I have a link here. Let me just copy it and paste. So I'm just going to search. Yeah. Cool. No, I don't think it's what I'm looking for. Also to try to get this documentation. Okay. So I'm going to try to pull up the dispatch reference. So while I do that, I was talking about this. So this is the repository dispatch API reference, and it basically tells us how we basically make a dispatch. It takes the event type as a payload of the client's payload and then the event type itself, and then of course we also require a way to authenticate against this endpoint. So it's going to also require another token tool as well. So yeah, I'm going to move on to this to try to explain some parts of this. So in case you'd like to go through, the already written code for this demo, it's available here. So you could, try to, if you'd like to just go to make a deep dive straight, you're free to do that. So it's available there. I'm going to make a reshare into my ID. I think I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, I'm sharing my ID. Cool. Yeah. So I've already written the code, but I'll delete it all over and then try to explain this, so in here I have my make file. This make file just contains a bunch of steps to more like local development steps to install kubectl, use kind security cluster, install the Spinnaker CRDs, some other things like also install Minion so that I can also do complete the cycle of local development. Then there's the build a gradle file. Here in here I have a couple of things. First is some information about the bundle itself, the plugin ID, and then the description for the bundle, the provider, and then the version. So this version is going to be passed from the git tag on the current repository. If there's no tag, I think I'm just going to make it snapshot if it's dirty. If it's dirty, as in it contains stage changes, we're just going to make a version and then call it snapshot. So this is derived from the actual git version that is passed by the Palantir plugin. Then there's also the plugin bundler plugin that is written by the Spinnaker project. So the Spinnaker project will has this plugin that actually bundle each of these individual Spinnaker service extensions here. This Spinnaker service extensions here would bundle all of them, because each of those extensions will generate a zip on their own, and then all of them is all bundled into one should I say all encompassing zip at the end of the day. So these are the zips for the individual services deck and Orca. Then this is going to be the distribution, the actual GitHub dispatches distribution at the end of the day. So I'll try to explain through some of the dependencies here. I have the dependencies that are specific to Kotlin here. In here. So basically the Kotlin key apps, dependencies, and then some things around target language versions of things like that. Yeah. So I also have the Spinnaker dependencies themselves here, which is the Spinnaker service extension, which is here, and then maybe plugin extensions as well. Also, I have some things around the actual APIs that I'll be using. For being able to write the plugin for Orca, I'm likely going to have to communicate with or interface with the Orca API. So the Orca API defines these extension points. Yeah, awesome. So I'll try to share them into the chat. Cool. Then what other link did I share? I think I also shared the repository dispatch API reference. So I'm trying to share those links that I spoke about into the chat. I'll also be sharing each of these links too at the end of the call, so that you can all go through it and then it's all okay. Yeah. So yeah. So for this for the Orca plugin, I definitely have those PF4J dependencies that I have to use, because there's some spots that I use I think PF4J annotations. I think there's also some parts that that actually dependent on a PF4J plugin interface itself. Then yeah. So also I require some things from the Cork plugins API. So what is Cork? Cork is basically like a building block for Spinnaker services. Say for example, I have some functionality that is likely going to be shared across services, but it's not really service specific. Things around enabling people to use API clients that would call into internal services or internal endpoints of those services. So those interfaces, those essential points are available on the Cork APIs itself. So yeah, I'm going to try to delete all this and stuff, blah blah. I could just try to explain it. Let me delete it. Yeah, so definitely we're going to have to start with the package itself. So the reason I'm not going to, I didn't really take it through the process of setting up the whole Gradle project is it feels like a lot of those is mostly bootstrap work that it's a bit quite easy. So you could, if you don't want to also set it up, you could also grab any of the existing plugins and then try to modify from there. So yeah. Yeah, so the first entry point is going to be more like the plugin class itself. It's more like basically like the entry point to any application, right? It's more like it's, if you have things like set up actions, or also set down actions to you. Also, this is where you likely define some of them. So so the plugin the plugin class itself extends the PF4J plugin, and then we'll take in a plugin wrapper. I think it's taking a plugin wrapper that you can then use. And then from there, you can then, if you have some things around, setting up loggers to, so that, you can log out, log, important information, you can do that. And then, if, at the point of also, ending, tearing down the plugin, you can also, tear down those resources too as well. So I'm going to name this, so, there's an important part in that, the plugin class here has to, the name of the plugin has to, it has to be, consistent with the package name that is already, provided here. So I'm going to just copy that and, put it calling class from there. Yep. So we take a plugin wrapper. Then we extend the PF4J plugin source. So it takes a wrapper as well. Yeah. So basically, this is the entry point. It will basically, if I have things like around, doing some, set up things. So this enables, it provides some endpoints that you could use around, if the, starting the plugins, ending plugins. So I could override this, and then add some of those actions around. If, for example, I want to log that plugin I started, I could just override the start method here, and then add the login information and to do all of that. This doesn't have to just be just logging something. It could also be around if you want to start a logger or do anything, or reach out to or register that plugin at some remote endpoint. Also, I'd also need to define so yeah, there's this important concept around building Spinnaker stages in that for us to be able to tie each of those tasks in a stage together, for us to be able to know that, okay, this task connects to this task, we're going to need a way of defining, providing a definition for that stage. The Spinnaker project, it's, especially when you're going to be writing, Orca stages, tries to encourage, you going the route of using an actual stage definition, builder. So what the stage definition builder is, it's like an interface on Orca that you can use to define stages. To define, connected tasks and attach them to, Orca stages in a pipeline. So, I'll show you, how that is. So I'm going to name this the dispatch stage. Dispatch stage. So you'd also want to take notes of how you name the stage, because how you name the stage is how the stage is going to show up on the deck or how you're going to be able to reference that stage in your deck configuration. So if I were to name a class a stage dispatch stage, it means that if you get, especially when you extend the definition builder, the get type method on it basically trims away the stage part, and this stage would be be available on the deck front as a dispatch. So you want to have some consideration around how you name it. So I have to extend the state definition builder. So I don't really have much dependencies around this. So I've not, they're not really parameters here. So the stage definition builder has some interesting methods around how you define stages. You could have stages before, you could have tasks that are run before a stage. You could have tasks that are run after a stage. You could also have tasks that are run within a stage. So those interfaces are provided so that you can kind of like have a rich be able to build and develop a rich kind of like a rich stage, such that if you have some some interesting considerations around doing things, the order of execution and all that. You can easily take advantage of that. But for now, I'll just be using the build task graph method. So using that, I'm going to basically build a task graph that says that okay, in this stage I have a couple of stages of a couple of tasks, and this is the order in which they're executed. Yep. So I don't think the task graph here really does anything, so I'll remove it. So you follow the so you could also take you don't really need the stage execution yet. You don't. Builder, stage definition builder, personal builder. So we could just use the builder instead of the stage. So cases that the stage execution is important is, say for example, I want to define some on the deck UI and already define some configuration. I could easily retrieve it from the from the context of or basically map that stage that has already been configured on the deck UI to some some model that that helps me retrieve the data from from that stage. So I could, so I'm going to say the task, name of the task is going to, let's call dispatch. Then I'm going to call this called so basically this just takes basically the name of the class that you'd like to reference. So I'm going to create called dispatch class. So like I said again, if you'd like to go move on with all of this, you can just directly go grab the link for the code. So because these APIs are usually written in Java, you'd have to, some things may not map directly, as they would in Java. A Kotlin class is not exactly a Java class. So, I'm basically asking, saying, okay, I have this Kotlin class, pass the Java equivalent to this of the name. Yeah. Yeah. So the dispatch task, the call dispatch task is has to be extend an Orca task itself. So all of these are all available via the Orca the Orca API endpoints. But the call dispatch task I need to retrieve some important information that is already going to be that we are going to configure in the Spinnaker configuration while deploying Spinnaker itself. So I'm going to need to retrieve all of this information I've already defined here. So let me move out of this. All of this information I've already defined here. I'm going to need to retrieve the maybe not all of this, but but for the sake of this, of this demo, I'm going to retrieve, the token, the org, the repo, the payload, all of that from the backend. So I'm going to, have to, define a plugin configuration, class that should, that will be, automated by the Spinnaker, service, and then, I'll be able to retrieve that. So let me do a new share. Cool. So I'm going to have to create a module. Calling class. I'm going to call it dispatch config. So it's actually going to be a data class. So I can retrieve this information. Data class. So for this, I'm going to need to add the plugin configuration annotation. So I need to have the auth token. Share. And to have the auth token. Also need to retrieve some things like around fork. And not necessarily the payload, but the event type. The event type, you don't necessarily have to, you could just retrieve the record. So how do I get this information? I'll basically have an annotation called plugin configuration. The plugin configuration annotation allows you to retrieve important plugin configuration information from from the manifest that is used to deploy that Spinnaker service itself. So it's similar to something like this. Looking for a PF4G plugin. Yeah, so you could easily define the configuration here and then retrieve it via that that's plugin configuration annotation. So I'm going to share this also in that link. Kind of like an asshole to switch mix in this case. Yeah, so I think I've added the plugin configuration annotation. Then I can add it as a dependency. Configuration task. So for a task to actually succeed, we are probably going to have to execute it. Alternatively, you can also check the additional methods available on that on the task the task interface itself. So there are some things you can extend, like the timeouts, the timeouts for, I think, for retrievable tasks. You can define the timeouts. You can also define the backup period as well for retrievable tasks. But I think this is just a basic task, so I think we just have access to the execute method. Yeah. We'll come here. Call this batch. So, execute. Yeah. So in the execute method, you have access to a couple of information. You have access to the plugin configuration. You also have access to the actual stage definition that is coming from subsequent previous stages, and also from the one that is configured on the deck UI. But for this, I also have I also need something I also need an API an HTTP client that I'll need to call out to GitHub to GitHub endpoint. So the Spinnaker service provides something like a plugin SDK that I can basically plugin SDK. So this, I think this is under the Cork API. So this basically just gives you access to the this just basically gives you access to some helper, should I say helper methods or things like that to help you interact with the actual Spinnaker service that you're talking to. So I could say plugin configuration. No, plugin SDK. Try to check through the chats. Okay. Yeah, cool. So I will increase the IntelliJ font size as well to show what's the command list of response. Okay, I hope this works. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to try to fetch speak lines from the from plugin SDK. So I think there are a few things. There's the service SDK. There's the SEDE. I don't think. I think the SEDE has some functions around serializing and deserializing data. Then there's a YAML resource loader that helps you, basically load configuration from from a YAML file. So I'm going to first try to configure a client. I need to name it dispatch. I'm going to set the URL to the Github I think we're going to now retrieve some of this information. Config repo. No, hog first and then repo. Cool. So I'm going to also need to pass some HTTP client config to as well. Just leave that empty. I'm just going to use the defaults for that. And then so does configure return. Cool. So I'm going to also add So it's not. You can also retrieve. You can also retrieve clients for internal, Spinnaker services. It's not limited to being able to call external services alone. Let's retrieve that. Let's do that. I think I should be able to do this. No. This is a question. It's no, then name this config. It's meant to be client. Able to call this. I'll just retrieve my dispatch client config. Yeah, so I'll now use this dispatch client, subsequently. So first, I'm going to need a body to. I'm going to first need to make the request. So I need some important things. I need I need the actual dispatch body itself. I also need I also need to pass the headers the authorization header with the token that I need to use to access certain points. I also need to I also need to pass a client payload too as well. Cool. So I'm going to try to name these models and move this. I also need to actually pass the client payload. So I need to create a class for that as well. So let me check the API. Event type and client payload. All this dispatch body. So this is also data class 2 as well. So I need a couple of things. I need to pass the class client payload. I also need event type. But the GitHub API does not expect it to be just passed out in the camel case. But because the the HTTP client that is used by that core API uses Jackson under the hood, so I'm able to easily add those JSON property annotations to specify the data is initialized and serialized. So we had just Jackson annotation here. Because the GitHub API expects it in this order, so I need to have this to my screen. So this is what the GitHub API expects. Have the JSON property here. Call it client payload. And the events type too as well. Type. So I think we should be good. So for now, I'm just going to pass the client payload as a string, like an hello world string, just to be sure. Cool. So I'm going to go back here. Call this body dispatch config. No, dispatch config. dispatch body, I'm going to, I need some information on the client payload. I'm going to say, then the event type is going to be test event, just uploaded there. So it doesn't really matter. You can also retrieve this information from, from the actual preconfigured, tech UI. So usually you have to do something like map this to maybe just for the sake of demonstration, we could map this to something like dispatch config. So mapping this to dispatch config means that I'm able to retrieve any of this information by just configuring from UI. Of course, it's not expected that you configure your announce token from the UI, but just for the sake of demonstration purposes, so I'm just going to comment that out. And I also need to make the request itself. So let's see what the HTTP client expects when to actually make a request. I think that GitHub API requires a post. I think and then the HTTP client requires a request object. So what is a request object? So the request object has some properties, request name, just for tracing purposes. Tracing purposes as in what shows up in those logs, those service logs eventually, so you're easily able to trace incoming outgoing request. So it takes the path, the content type is by default application JSON. So this is especially when icons be passed an object, it's good to set the proper content type. So I would probably override this to maybe text or something later down the line. So then the headers too as well, and then query parameters. So just a few things I will be changing. I think the headers and the body. We also need to pass the body. Yeah. So we need to actually make the request. So all of this are from the Cork API. So pretty much any Spinnaker service you would be looking to extend would have the plugin SDK would have any of these things that you could use to help you down the line. I'll call dispatch. So does this take? And then a path. So I think it's this slash dispatches. Yeah, slash dispatches. Cool. So I'm going to actually do the post. What does the post take? A request. Cool. So I'm actually going to do the post. And then I think the post actually returns an object of type response. So we could then have on that. Cool. So a few things. We want to check that the dispatch we sent out to GitHub was successful, and then return a result to from that task that signifies that okay, this task was successful, or this task failed. We want to terminate the pipeline. You could also decide to do a continued a failed continued so as well if you think it's not that it's not really essential to the operation of the pipeline. So I'm going to check on this was error. So I'm going to it task results. I'm going to pass some information to the context. So this takes the execution status. Say it's terminally failed. And then I'm going to also say I'm also going to pass some information to context. To call this so to call this okay. Let's call this key dispatch. Call just going to pass the response body. But the problem with that is that the response body actually returned by that HP client is an input stream. So you cannot just send it out. You can just pass it as a normal string and then it's all be good. So I'm going to need to read from that stream and then close the stream appropriately. So I'll just leave it at that for the moment while I try to. Yeah, so I'm going to actually need to build this. I'm going to actually need to build this. So if it's not an error, that means it was successful. We also want to return a successful state and see that the task succeeded. So for the for the execution status is available, you can check this. So you can based on this, and then you decide on what kind of execution state you want to return. If you'd like to continue, if you'd like to leave a hand, if you'd like to suspend the pipeline or any other thing. So I'm not sure about if not solid has been implemented, but yeah. So I'm going to return a successful state. Yeah, status here. I'll call it builder. Call this execution status succeeded. I'm also going to context so I'm still going to read from the body. I'm just leaving it there like for the interim. I'm also going to actually do it. So if you check, we can see that the response body is actually an input stream. So I'm going to read that and then save somewhere. So I'm going to have call this read body. So I think it is responsibility. It's going to be my responsibility to close that body, and also because I'll be using an input stream reader, I also have to close the input the input stream reader that I'm using too as well. I'm going to call this body input stream. Stream. Yep. So for this, I'm going to need to use an input stream reader. Yeah, and which takes an input stream, and also the cassette and all that encoding. I'm just going to leave it as what it is. And I'm going to read, use input stream reader to read the body. All of it. So I think, yep, I have to close it myself. And I have to close the button. So close the input stream. Both will close. Both returns exceptions, especially exceptions. If for example, if for example the body was terminated in the middle of the request, or some other issue happened. I should probably close the input stream reader before closing the body. I'm not sure the other is important too. Then I should change the signature. use that here. Also going to use that yet as well. In fact, I should probably take this out into a separate method on its own. I'm going to call this I'm going to need the response itself. Itself, and I think that should be all that's required. I'm going to return a task result. So basically, task result, tells the pipeline that okay, this task succeeded. I should, proceed, or I can decide whatever it is. So every task has to have a task result. Have a task result. So I'm going to call this, and I'm also going to take the execution status as well. I should probably just take the execution status and then the context. If you have questions I'm not addressing, you could also add them into the chat session so I can reply. So I'll have this as results. Just do a copy and paste here. Cool. Then take this and just use this body. So I'm going to say it succeeded. I'm going to read the body and pass that. Cool. So pretty much copy this and just change the status. Cool. I need to have some comments around this. And also, I'll now be working on the QA part. So because of time, I'll not start over on all of that. I'll just try to explain some parts of this. Yep, so I think we are good on the Orca side of things. If we try to do a gradle build, it should work. Which I have here. I should have no issue here. Let me see what build task graph does on the internet. I expect that to not work. See execution. We have the normal here. Default is normal. See execution and the builder itself. So what I return the task graph. Minutes. So I'm going to try to explain the deck setup, the deck parts, and before we come out to fix this. So in the deck UI, you are going to have basically some code around, loading the plugin itself at, the components that will be responsible for configuring the stage configuration and also displaying some outputs of the stage. So this is the dispatch stage. In dispatch stage, we have some information that's that's Yep. So there's all these are the various things you can configure with with each of those stages. So I'll just go back to So in this patch stage, you have the label, which shows up in the Spinnaker UI, the description for the stage, then the key. So this key is actually very important in that it determines what actual task will be, what actual task will be run for this. Or rather, what actual stage will be run for this plugin. So where that information is derived from is from the get type here, get stage type here. So that basically takes the class name and trims away. Say for example, if I have for example, if there's a class called my fancy stage, the type would be my fancy. And it is that type there that you actually have to specify here. So because I've named that I named that dispatch stage, I'll name this, I'll return this to dispatch. So that is basically how that's the stage configuration is tied to the Orca code itself. I think the APIs may have changed. No, I don't think so. I think the APIs have changed. Change it. Yep. So I had the wrong method all along. So I think it should be okay. If you try to rebuild this, we should be good. So what this would basically do is to go to each of those sub-modules within the project and then try to build a jar or basically build the project, zip it, and then, for each of those individual, plugins for each of those services, and then take all of those, and then you had some metadata to that, and then that's to actually be what it would be in the plugin. So yeah, I think we specified we added the authorization headers and other things as well. And there's station. You can take that from the dispatch config token. Yeah. So if you rebuild this should all be good, and we have that plugin. So I'll try to unzip the old zip so I can explain through some parts of them. So I don't know if you have questions. Please let me know in the comments. Just I think it's just session is still up. And also let me share the other links I have here. Overview. So pretty much the same way you'd do your plugin development for for Orca is the same way you'd do it for, well, generally the same way you do it for other Spinnaker services too as well. And not every Spinnaker service would always have an extension point for all you have. If you require if you require some functionality that is not already addressed by extension point somewhere, you could basically request create an RFC and to go to, I don't think you do even have to create an RFC. You can basically create an issue for it to have that addressed. And if you also like to contribute to, it's also welcome. So let me have this. So I'm going to share the links shortly. Oh, I don't think I can share links. Not sure. Let's try to reload this and then share the links. Cool. I don't know if there are other questions, but let me try and zip this so that we have those. So the reason I have this name as Dead is because I definitely have on stage changes. I have made changes to the repository that I've not had to commit. So that is why that is being regarded as Dead. So I'll try to see if I can copy this somewhere and then I'll zip it. Yeah, projects. Okay. Yeah, that's it. So in this, you can see that there's a deck plugin. I'm going to extract this. Yeah. So the deck plugin, there's an entry point for deck to load that plugin that's written. It's basically load this and then run this, mount the components that will help me do the configuration, and then return some important data too as well. Then if you also check here too, this also contains some of the classes that I also, if I have some dependencies that are not already part of Orca, for example, I decide to add some custom retrofit clients, that Java will bundle depending on what my greater configuration is. I'm going to extract here. fact, the manifest should be the plugin manifest should be here. Yeah, so pretty much the same, the information I specified here is what is added as, the plugin manifest that would be, in the plugin, actual plugin manifest. I'm sure that, more sections will come up that will help you take you through, how to debug, some of your Spinnaker plugins, and how you, typically go around, finding issues, running those plugins with Spinnaker services, and using tools like telepresence to, replace your local, Spinnaker service with what is the remote, dependencies cluster. Yep. So what else? So I'm going to try to do a recap. I think we spoke about, each of those Spinnaker services and what they do. We spoke about, Orca specifically that Orca does, service orchestration, more like pipeline orchestration on Spinnaker. And if you want to have a custom stage for that, that maps out to actual pipeline stage of the UI, you'd go by, extending Orca. That means that you'd have to write a plugin for Orca that's dependent on Orca. And that means that you'd have to use two APIs, the Orca-api and then the kock-api, because you also need to use some probably an SDK that's that's available as part of Orca, or maybe you want to communicate with Orca internally. Also, I also spoke about the plugin configuration annotation. It allows us to fetch configuration from for our plugins to use from from the backend. I also spoke about being able to map stages to to things like to being able to map front end deck configuration as part of the stage that is here. As part of the stage that is here. So that means that I can easily go to the front end and then configure some things and retrieve it here, and then use that data. I also spoke about I think I spoke about the extension annotation that also says okay, this is basically a API4J extension, and I spoke about the execution details for each task, and execution status for each task, and then how you specify that a task has succeeded or has failed. I think I spoke about how Spinnaker's pipeline stages are composed, using the stage definition builder, which consists of each individual Spinnaker stages. So I think I don't know if you have additional questions that you would like me to answer. So I'm going to try to rejoin the chat. I had to reload the chat so I could share the links. I find it difficult to share links, but basically, if you go to the Spinnaker plugin creators page, you get some resources how you can get started as to build a Spinnaker plugin. So for now, we basically worked on the Spinnaker plugin to set up the Github dispatches. I would have loved to demo this, but I don't really have that much resources. I think I wrote the make file, but if I were to load this, the whole zone link would go out. So basically, the repository is on GitHub. If you'd like to check things out or play with things, it's there. It's free. It's all good, and you could also use that to extend that and go from there to build your own plugin. If you feel that what you want to extend is not Orca, it's Ego, or it's Echo, or it's any other Spinnaker service, feel free. I mean, you're always welcome. You'd always find more examples on the plugin plugin repository that you want to go there. So I think that's mostly it. I really appreciate you guys taking joining this session to get so we could get started with plugin developments on this chat. I don't know if you have additional questions, but I think that's mostly it for me. So I'm going to wait. I'm sure there are more questions. Let's try to wait for questions. So this session was mostly about plugin development with Spinnaker, and we went through those those important concepts with plugin development, the concept of cancelable stages, retrievable stages, and being able to specify backups and then timeouts and then being able to specify tasks after a stage, before a stage that enables you to have that kind of granularity with developing Spinnaker pipeline stages. Then we also spoke about the extensibility of Spinnaker, in that you can decide to extend any Spinnaker's tool to suit your business requirements. If you have some functionality that you'd like to add to Spinnaker that you feel that definitely not to the whole community, but it's probably not going to be that something that is going to be required by the whole community. You could decide to write as a plugin, and then share that plugin with the community, and then we can all get to use that plugin and share it, and it's all good. So thanks again for joining my session. I really appreciate your presence. Thanks a lot.